All right, so what I want to talk to you guys today is about what palatable food is and the role of a palatable food in weight loss and weight gain. So when we talk about palatable food, we're referring to like how actually enjoyable a food is to eat. And like the pure definition of palatable food is a food or a drink that is pleasant to taste. So automatically you should think of something like your favorite cheat meal, like a pizza, a quesadilla, things like that. Foods that are very, very tasty and taste good. You enjoy eating them. Um, and so with the definition of palatability, it's going to include things like taste, texture, aroma, and even how the food actually looks in itself, sitting on the plate ready to be eaten, right? If you're looking at a plate of plain chicken breast and plain white rice, a white chicken breast that's baked and just a couple white rice, and then you look at a hot, steamy, cheesy pizza, right? That's obviously going to be a lot more appealing. We all know which one that we would grab if we, had the choice to do so. Um, and while enjoying delicious food, is obviously one of life's pleasures, and you should definitely, enjoy that from time to time, not every day, as a lot of Americans people do in general. These highly palatable foods can have a pretty significant impact on your ability to lose weight, and avoid weight gain. So let's break down why this actually happens, and why it's a trap that so many people fall into. So if we look at the palatability, if we look at the science, excuse me, of palatability in correlation to overeating. So, highly palatable foods, things such as going to be high in sugar, fat, salt, all of these activate your brain's reward system. This is the same system that responds to other pleasurable activities that you may do. This could be like, music, scrolling through TikTok, socializing, fishing, like anything that you enjoy doing and you feel good while doing it. This is kind of hitting that same reward system. So when you eat these type of food, the brain releases dopamine, which is the chemical that is associated with pleasure and reward. You are essentially getting a dopamine high by eating these highly palatable foods. Now the problem is this dopamine release can override your body's natural hunger responses, and your fullness signals like leptin and ghrelin, instead of stopping you, um, and saying, hey, we're full, you're satisfied, don't eat anymore, and you're more than likely to overeat because your brain is telling you and it's rewarding you with this dopamine hit. This tastes good, this feels amazing, let's have more, right? And again, you're just getting hit by that dopamine high. Um, and then if we dive into it even deeper, it's going to be a calorie density problem. We all know, if we go back to the example of the plain chicken breast and the plain white rice over pizza, which one is going to be higher in calories? The higher palatable food, the pizza, right? Like a slice of pizza is probably what, 400 or 500 calories, I guess, depending on what kind of pizza it is. And that's just one little piece. That whole chicken and rice combo, it could be 300 or 400 calories, and it's not as palatable as the pizza is, but it's going to keep you full for longer. But it's not going to hit that dopamine effect, like the pizza would. Um, Essentially they're packing a lot of calories into a very small volume, which again is basically the definition of a palatable food. So if you think about this, in terms of like a handful of potato chips versus a handful of like raw vegetables, a handful of chips might have 150 calories. If you get a bag of Doritos, it might say on the back, 150 calories, per serving. It might have 16 servings in it, right? So tons and tons of calories. You could probably eat the whole bag in one sitting if you aren't careful. But if you get a handful of veggies, the calorie content there is going to be 15, 30, 50 calories at most, right? Again, the veggies aren't going to be as palatable as the bag of Cool Ranch Doritos. That's my favorite. I'm not a big fan of the red, but anyway, you're going to be more likely to eat the more palatable foods, which again is higher calories, which kind of makes sense with the with the obesity, epidemic that we just have in this country now, the more palatable foods, it hits that dopamine reward system in your body. You just keep eating it, eating it, eating it. And somebody who, might suffer from things like, depression, anxiety, things like that. If we can all agree here that you would probably, if you were in their shoes, you would probably find everything that you could do to get a dopamine hit to feel better. And what's their feel better dopamine response? Eating palatable foods. So again, you got to look at things like that from all perspectives and not just thinking, hey, this overweight person doesn't have the dedication or the want to or the drive, the desire. And a little bit of that could be true, but some of that could be like, hey, these highly palatable foods are their comfort foods, just kind of, what it boils down to. Um, and then if we look at it on the other hand, these less palatable foods, such as, the whole fruits, the vegetables, things like that, these are going to be lower in the calories and density, and they're going to take up less space in your, they're going to take up more space in your stomach, like per capita of, if you look at like density and calories, you're going to have you'll have a ton of veggies in your stomach if you were to equate, a one or two handfuls of chips, where that's not going to keep you fuller for longer, but those, handful of veggies will keep you full and satisfied for a very long time. It's got a lot of fiber in those, and that's one of the other reasons why. Now, if we look at this from now, this when I come across this kind of struck me as like could be a little off, but the more and more that I've looked into it, I do believe it. Um, I don't know if y'all have seen on the news how like people are like um, going on strike against like Kellogg, getting all the dyes out of the food, things like that, and people are altering those alternative swaps, to eating Kellogg's, things with all the dyes and stuff in it. Um, and what I'm talking about here is many of these processed foods are specifically designed to hit what's called that bliss point, and that's what they call it. Um, this is going to be that perfect combination of sugar, fat, salt that makes this food almost impossible to put down. Think of cookies, pizza, ice cream. You probably went to the grocery store and got the little small, was it a quart maybe, the little small things of ice cream. I'm going to eat half of this tonight, half of it tomorrow. More than likely, you finish the whole thing, right? Like it's not that big, and you're like, I'm already halfway through it. I already got the spoon out. Let me just go ahead and finish it up, right? That's typically how that goes. These foods are engineered to keep you coming back more and more, time and time again. Um, when you consume these foods on a regular basis, your taste buds and your brain become conditioned to prefer these over less palatable foods, these nutrient dense options, and this can make healthy eating feel less satisfying. And this leads to a cycle of cravings and overconsumption. So your brain is rewiring itself to enjoy the more highly palatable foods over the healthier stuff, which again is going to turn into a cycle of craving that highly palatable foods, which in turn they're more calorie dense, in turn overconsumption. And the calories are going to go up, up, and up, and you're going to pile on the body fat pretty quickly. Um, I mean, you guys would agree if you stopped your diet right now today and for the next 7 days, you ate nothing but pizza, ice cream, potato chips, you'd probably come back next week and be 10, 15 pounds heavier. It just is what it is. And once you do that, it's kind of hard to unwire the brain and get it rewired to go back to the other way. And it's obviously possible. People do it all the time, but um, your body enjoys that dopamine hit from those highly palatable foods. Um, and again, this is why going from a diet that is very unhealthy, very high in palatable foods, it's going to be sometimes hard to kick that habit. And in these instances, you got to start slow. You can't go from 0 to 180, the whole opposite spectrum. You really have to, do it in very small increments to, in a sense, rewire your brain to think the other way, if that makes sense. And we've already touched on this out here too, emotional eating and comfort foods. Obviously, these highly palatable foods are going to be associated with emotional eating. When you're stressed, you're tired, you're anxious, you're feeling down about something, your brain is going to crave food that will make you feel better quickly, right? Nobody that was ever crying went to the fridge and grabbed a celery stick. That's just dumb, right? 100% of the time, these people are gonna grab for a candy bar, a soda, ice cream, whatever makes them feel better in that moment in time, and it's not gonna be something that's less palatable. It's gonna be something that's highly palatable. Again, get that dopamine hit, and unfortunately, these comfort foods are going to be high in sugar, fat, which all provide that quick dopamine hit, and it has a very small window of lasting satisfaction, right? And I explained this to somebody one time before, and this might make all this make a little more sense. So let's say if any one of you on the call today is craving a cheeseburger so bad, right? You want a cheeseburger and fries and a Coke, right? But you know that you only get, one free meal a week, and you don't want to use that today. You want to wait until the weekend, right? Let's say that you do eat the cheeseburger, or you eat the fries, and you drink the drink. That 10-minute span of you eating that food is the amount of time that you're going to get that enjoyment, right? Once you take that last bite of that cheeseburger, that last bite of that French fry, that last sip of that drink, that enjoyment's gone, right? So if you can kind of tell yourself, like, hey, this little 10 minutes of a good cheeseburger or a good French fry or a good Coke or whatever isn't worth it to get to my goals, right? Then you can kind of justify not eating that if that makes sense. So again, if you're eating, it takes you 10 minutes to eat the cheeseburger, the fries, and the Coke. That little 10 minutes of pleasure, was it worth it to set you back further from your goal? And if it is, and if you don't care, right, then you probably just need to maybe rearrange your priorities and see like if this is something that you really want to do, right? And now I'm not saying that like, eating something like that is never a good idea. Typically if I'm eating something like that, it's during a free, it's on I get two a week, a cheat meal right now, but I surely don't go over that. And sometimes I have to make myself do, more than one during the week because I know that that little bit of satisfaction is going to quickly diminish once I get done eating that meal. And then this ties into the next point, the speed of consumption. These highly palatable foods are designed to be eaten quickly. Think about how easy it is to drink a milkshake, eat a bag of candy, eat a burger and fries, compared to chicken and rice, beef and potatoes, a salad, right? It takes you a lot longer to eat those meals than it would a highly palatable meal. The faster that you eat, the less time that your body and your brain, I guess the best way to put this, the the less time that your body has to send those fullness signals to the brain, right? Again, this can lead to overeating. It like for me, it typically takes me 20 minutes to eat my first meal of the day, which is 150 grams of chicken and 300 grams of rice. Again, that takes me like 20 minutes. You put a plate of Mexican food in front of me, it'll be gone in 5 minutes. It's just one of the things to where it's not as highly palatable as those, sugary foods, high fat, high sugar foods. Again, it just takes you a little bit longer to eat them, which then in turn can cause you to overeat, right? I think I read one time it takes roughly 15 to 20-ish minutes for your brain to register that you're full. So if you're just scarfing stuff down in the first 5 or 10 minutes of you at a buffet, it's going to take your brain 5 or 10 more minutes to say, hey, buddy, like, what are you doing? You're already way overeating of what you're supposed to be doing. So again, these foods are going to be consumed very, very fast. Um, and then again, if you look at, the high palatable food, they're not also, well, they are high in sugar, fat, sodium, things like that, but they can also come in a very wide variety of flavors. I mean, if you go to your local Golden Corral or whatever buffet is in your area, right? There's a buffet of desserts, chocolate cake, ice cream, cookies, um, which is going to keep your taste buds pretty excited and prevents you from feeling satisfied. I mean, everybody has the fear of FOMO, right? Fear of of missing out. You grab a cookie, you say, man, I've already paid for this all you can eat buffet. Let me go get a little bite of this too, and a little bite of this too. If they have 10 different options, try them all, right? Like that's some people's mindset. Like I've already paid for this. I'm going to at least try a bite of it. And those, 10 little bites of dessert could be an extra 2,000, 3,000 calories, right? Again, the more varieties that they are, because I mean, because let's be honest, I think a lot of you have probably already figured this out. There's only so many ways to cook chicken. There's only so many ways to cook beef, but there's pepperoni pizza, cheese pizza, cookie pizza, a meat lovers pizza. I mean, we could probably name 20 of those, and that's just from a guy who doesn't really enjoy eating pizza, right? And there's actually a name for this. There's a phenomenon. It's called the sensory specific satiety, which means the more variety that you have of a food, the more that you're likely to eat it. So again, the more variety, the more likely that you're going to overeat it. Again, weight gain. Um, which in the end turns into our next point and our last point, which is the set point theory. So over time, you are regularly eating these highly palatable foods, which can lead to weight gain and potentially raise your body's set point, right? Your body naturally tries to maintain a certain set point. If you've been up 220 pounds for the last 10 years of your life, you could probably not eat for 3 days and probably still be 200 and what I say, 20 pounds. You could be that same weight, or if you overate for a couple of days, you would probably still stabilize out, averaging about that 220 number. Your body has a set point that it's comfortable at, right? And once you get to that point, and if you got to that point off of eating these highly palatable foods, which are very caloric dense, this can make weight loss a heck of a lot more difficult because your body is going to resist dropping the weight. It's comfortable here. It might not be healthy, but it's comfortable. It knows how to maintain it. It knows that you're going to partake in these highly palatable, nasty, caloric dense foods. It's comfortable there. So now, just five short points of how to manage palatability for weight loss. Obviously, prioritize whole foods. These foods are going to be lower in sugar, fat, salt, and they're going to be less likely to overstimulate that dopamine hit that you get. And obviously, whole foods are going to be a heck of a lot better than any kind of processed food that you're eating. That's just common knowledge. That's just common sense, right? And then if we plan for treats, include small portions of your favorite foods occasionally. I mean, I tell everybody that comes into this program, this is not a set time period program of once you hit the time period, like, all right, you see, it's time to go. Because typically, when people get into that mindset, like, okay, I'm going to buckle down for X amount of time. I'm going to eat no chocolate, drink no beer, no sodas, nothing. Well, if you have that mindset while you're here, how are you going to implement that back into your life once you get done, right? So, including these treats, these things that you enjoy, is a good idea in small portions, right? And fitting into your plan as well too. Um, it'll keep those feelings of deprivation in check, and you won't binge eat one random Thursday night when, man, I haven't had a candy bar in 10 months. I'm about to go crazy, right? Again, you got to plan for those treats, but still keep them in there. Practice mindful eating. Slow down. Savor your food. Nobody's going to take your food off your plate in front of you. If they took mine, I'd probably grab it back from them. And that's mine. I'm pretty picky with my food, at least. But that's going to give your brain time to register that fullness in that satiety. Um, if you can, control your environment. Keep these highly palatable foods out of sight, out of the house if you can. I know that's easier said than done. When having young kids, but if they're not easily accessible, you're not less likely to eat them. Um, I remember several years ago, I was in prep and I was had a show at the end of November. My birthday was October 30th. My wife bought one of those little small ice cream cakes for my birthday to like have it out for me. Like, when I woke up the next morning. And I told her, I said, you got to throw that thing away. Like I'll buy myself another one. Like I'm not like disrespecting your cake, right? But I'm in a prep. I can't eat any of this at all. But just me knowing, that it was in the house, I say, let me take this spoon and just take a sliver off, right? Well, eventually that sliver is going to turn into a whole piece. If you guys know anything about bodybuilding prep, it's very, very detailed, very, very strict. So again, I just had to get it out of the house to keep that temptation away, just what it boils down to. And then obviously the last thing, increase your protein, increase your fiber. These are going to help keep you full, satisfied, and reduce your temptations to overeat these highly palatable foods. So the main thing, the key takeaway here, is these highly palatable foods are designed to be irresistible. Um, their impact on your hunger, your satiety, and your caloric intake will be hindered if you cannot keep that under control. And by just understanding the science behind this palatability theory, it's not really a theory, it's pretty proven. Um, but it can hopefully help you make better choices in the long run, to say, hey, like I'm choosing to eat this highly palatable food. I know what the repercussions of this are going to be. Do I want to eat this? Yes or no? Is it going to get me closer to my goal? Yes or no? If it's a free meal, cool deal. Just make sure that you're walking if you can, 10 minutes before, 10 minutes after, and drink plenty of fluid beforehand to, help flush that stuff through, all that extra sodium and stuff out as well too. Um, don't shy away from things, but don't get into that habit of wanting these highly palatable foods every single night because it's not going to turn um, out for the best. So, um, with that, anybody got any questions? I guess has anybody ever really heard about palatability or even given it any kind of thought at all?
Well, I'll just speak.
I, I can rely on you, man. I appreciate it.
No, I mean, I guess I've never really thought about it in the sense of like palatability, but I do know from like a just from hearing of like marketing perspective and all that stuff, like even marketing is really geared towards like the site. So it like draws people in. And I know that's something big for me. Like if something looks good, like I'm definitely more tempted to go after it than I am like anything else. Regardless of if I'm hungry or whichever. And then also just to kind of help curb some of the stuff just in general. I try to keep healthier stuff that like I know that I enjoy that's a little bit more indulgent, but that isn't like
Yeah.
completely trash. Like I think at Sam's, like I found these like protein, they're like protein power like power balls or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah. 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 I've seen them.
Yeah, and like the ingredients on it are pretty clean, and so I just try to keep stuff like that around to like have in very small portions whenever I do get those cravings, because normally that'll help curb any sort of big binge that I might have. So
Yeah, for sure. And I do the same. Like I keep, chocolate rice cakes here, the caramel ones here, almond butter, things like that. To where like if I do get some like crazy craving to eat something that's sweet, like, those, if you've never had a chocolate rice cake, I mean, you might say I'm crazy, but they're pretty doggone good.
okay.
Um, and even the caramel ones aren't bad. Things like that, can really help like kick or like curb those cravings. And then, what you were talking about earlier about the marketing side of things. I mean, if you look at a Burger King commercial, they're showing them flipping the burger. It flips 6 times and hits on the grill and start to sizzle. And I mean, it's got the perfect char marks and it just looks fabulous. And then, if you get a burger, it looks nothing like that. I mean, I even seen one time. I think it was, I can't remember what fast food company it was, but I think it was they were trying to emulate syrup, but it was flowing too fast on the camera, like for the liking. So they ended up using motor oil, like refined motor oil to look like syrup to increase the way that it looked on camera, I guess, to make it look more enjoyable or something. So yeah, definitely that marketing definitely plays a big role in it for sure. But yeah, so if anybody else don't have anything, we'll wrap things up. But I thought this was a pretty interesting topic to talk about. It's just something to think about. You could probably, when you get off this call, you could probably sit down and write out 30 highly palatable foods that you probably enjoy, and you probably never thought of them in that manner. like pizza, cookies, ice cream, lasagna, spaghetti. Um, I don't know. I mean, there was what, six, seven right there, just off the rip. So typical stuff that most Americans eat. That again can probably um, foreshadow the shape that they're in, right? I mean, if you're eating these things several times a week, then for sure your affinity for them is going to increase, which again is going to increase your caloric intake. So, um, but yeah, anybody else got any more questions? Forever hold your peace. Um, if not, we will roll with it. And I guess I will see you guys next time. So I appreciate you guys showing up. It's the biggest one that we've had in a few weeks, actually. So cool deal. I appreciate everybody showing up. So